Chapter 42 Empires Collide Spain and England's War. Now 4 countries had claimed land in the Americas. France claimed part of Canada. England claimed the coast of what is now the United States. Portugal had colonies along the coast of South America. But Spain had more settlements in the Americas than anyone else. Spanish cities had been built all through South America and Central America. Spanish explorers had even journeyed up into North America. One adventurer, named Hernando de Soto, had explored the Mississippi River. Another explorer, Francisco Vasquez de Coronado, discovered the Grand Canyon. While the English and French were struggling to build tiny villages in North America, Spain was building an enormous empire. Spain was so huge and powerful that it was called Mistress of the World and Queen of the Ocean. But Spain had a problem. English adventurers kept getting in its way, and soon this problem would lead to one of the most famous sea battles of all time. Philip, the King of Spain, had once been the King of England. Do you remember Philip? When he was still just a prince, he married Elizabeth's older sister Mary and became King of England. 2 years later, Philip also inherited the throne of Spain. For a brief time, Philip was King of England and King of Spain. But then Mary died, Elizabeth inherited the English crown, and Philip lost the title King of England. He offered to marry Elizabeth to get it back. But when she said no, Philip realized that he would have to learn to live without his English crown. Philip didn't really need an English crown. His empire was so big that he was already having trouble running it properly. But Philip became more and more annoyed by English ships that insisted on sailing into Spanish waters. English traders were making money by selling slaves to the West Indies. English explorers were trying to settle land in North America that Philip wanted for himself, and sometimes English ships stopped Spanish ships loaded with gold and robbed them. Finally, Philip sent Elizabeth a message: "Keep your English ships out of Spanish waters, or Spain will declare war on England." Elizabeth didn't want to risk a war with Spain. She wasn't sure that England was strong enough to defeat the Spanish, so she sent Philip a peaceful, humble message in return. She promised that the English would leave Spanish territory and Spanish ships alone. But secretly, Elizabeth gave her sailors permission to go on robbing the Spanish. English pirates knew that they could steal Spanish treasure and sink Spanish ships with no fear of punishment from the Queen. Meanwhile, Elizabeth kept right on sending English ships on journeys of exploration. England grew richer and richer and stronger and stronger. Soon Philip realized that Elizabeth's promise had been a big lie. He decided that it was time to prove once and for all that Spain, not England, was the most powerful country in the world. Philip began to build the biggest fleet of warships ever. Shipbuilders labored over huge galleys, warships rowed by oarsmen down in the ship's belly, and galleons, enormous sailing ships filled with men and supplies. Philip planned to crush the English navy with these huge ships. Then they could unload their soldiers on England's shores. Smaller, quicker ships were built as well. Philip planned to send these ships inland, down to England's rivers. Once England was filled with Spanish soldiers, Philip could force England to stay out of the New World. And Philip had another reason for invading England. Philip was a Catholic king, and he knew that Catholics were not allowed to worship openly in England. Once he had conquered England, he planned to make England a Catholic country again. He thought that this conquest of England would be a great service to God. Finally, Philip assembled over 130 ships into a great floating army called the Spanish Armada. When the Armada was ready to sail for England, the Spanish commanders gave their soldiers very strict orders. They were to act in a Christian manner at all times. Catholic priests would accompany every ship and would hold church services on board. All of the sailors were expected to attend, and the soldiers were not allowed to swear, even while fighting. Philip wanted his armada to be a holy army, taking England back for the Catholic Church. Meanwhile, the English were frantically preparing for invasion. Queen Elizabeth put her cousin, Lord Howard, in charge of the English navy. But she made her most experienced sailor, Sir Francis Drake, second in command. At first, Howard and Drake decided that the English ship should sail south and attack the Spanish Armada before it could even leave the Spanish port. But strong winds blew the English navy back to the north. The ships anchored at Plymouth on the south coast of England and waited for the Armada. Philip's huge fleet sailed slowly north. Finally, a small English ship keeping watch in the channel glimpsed the masts of Spanish galleons on the horizon. Its captain sped back to Plymouth harbor, leaped from his ship, and ran to find the fleet's commanders. Sir Howard and Sir Francis Drake were having a friendly game of lawn bowling on a smooth grassy field near the harbor. Drake was just getting ready to toss his own ball down the grass when the captain arrived. "Sir Francis," the captain gasped, "come at once. The Spanish are in sight." Sir Francis Drake aimed his ball down the smooth grass. "Don't worry," he said. "There is plenty of time to finish the game and beat the Spaniards, too." But Drake and Howard didn't spend much time finishing their game. They ordered the English ships to sail into the English Channel and wait for the Spanish Armada there. When the Spanish ships arrived, they found the English navy ready to fight. The battle for England was about to begin. The Spanish ships were huge and filled with soldiers because the Spanish planned on winning by grappling and boarding. A Spanish ship would sail up beside an English ship, throw hooks over onto its deck, and pull the two ships together. Then Spanish soldiers would pour over onto the English ship and take it over. But the English had a different strategy in mind. Their ships were small and quick, with guns along each side. Rather than boarding the Spanish ships, the English just tried to shoot them full of holes so that they could no longer fight. The English strategy worked. Even though the Spanish navy was twice as large, the English won. 70 Spanish ships were destroyed. 20,000 Spanish soldiers had been killed. Spain, the mistress of the seas, had been defeated in a sea battle. The defeat of the Spanish Armada happened in 1588 and changed Spain and England forever. Spain would remain a powerful country, but it would never be quite as strong again. From now on, the English Empire would begin to grow. Soon, England, not Spain, would rule over an empire that stretched all across the world.